debate. intelligencesquared.com.
I'm gonna let the panel sum up very short bursts. So we're going to start with Matthew and work our way back, and I'm only going to give you 2 or 3 minutes each. So you can stay there, Matthew.
Okay.
You don't need to get up. And yeah.
Well, if somebody is generous and emotional, they're not at that moment being the market. You know, they're being a person in society. So generosity and emotional attachment to art, love of art, interest in doing good in society can certainly be a set of qualities that we admire in Charles Saatchi. That doesn't mean we therefore attribute those qualities to the market or that we find them in the market. The market is, believe me, not generous, and believe me also, it is not emotional. The democracy of the market is another bit of a story, I would say. You know, all markets strive to be as open as possible because they want to sell as much as possible. So it's no achievement for the art market to welcome zaniness as well as the dusty relics of the past, which many centrists have agreed are very good. That's simply where we are at culturally, that a great plurality of different types of art is tolerated and enjoyed. Now, when I say, you know, Chinese art looks pretty bad to me, I can't understand why Charles buys it and what the hell is everyone doing liking it, and why does every painting by those people cost $10 million? That's me individually as a critic, and that gentleman over there is quite right to say that it's the multitude of critical voices that have something to do with the consensus, but they are not the only deciders. Usually they're sort of agitators who stir up the discussion a bit here and there. They're not the ultimate deciders. And in a way, there is no ultimate decider.
Thank you, Matthew. And for the motion again, Scott.
Let me just tell a very quick story. Some years back, I was lecturing in the National Gallery, and I had a group of kids from East London. They'd never been to central London before, and I took them to the National Gallery, and I tried to show them some art. And I was standing in front of a Vermeer, and I tried to talk about it. I talked about Kant, I talked about love, I talked about history, just blank faces. Then I said to them, what do you think this painting's worth? And one of them said, I don't know, £100,000. I said, it's probably worth about 20 million. They went, bang, it jolted them. Suddenly, they got interested. And I went around the National Gallery and priced everything. And they were fascinated. Now, what happened there was the market actually increased their knowledge. They started asking questions about it. Because Vermeer, like all artists, was making money. He was earning a living. And that's what artists do. And it hasn't changed. The market is timeless. The way that artists make work to make money is also timeless. The numbers don't actually matter. What's great about the market, it's a form of sort of electroconvulsive therapy. It does jolt us, and when it jolts us, it does actually make us think in the broadest sense about the value of art, and that's a good thing.
Thank you, Scott. Okay. Now against Richard, your summing up, please.
Well, how depressing to imagine that the only thing that jolts people into an awareness of art is how much it... I nearly swore it. How much it's worth. Let me remind you that I ended my little bit earlier on by saying that the truth is that an unequivocal love of art should be the motive of every collector worthy of the name. Is there any hope of such a change occurring? It's impossible to tell. But now, in 2011, is an apposite time to remember how Vincent van Gogh defined his aims. Although he was regarded by many in his own day as an absurd and incomprehensible revolutionary, He set absolutely no limits on the number of people who might understand and come to love his work. In a very moving letter to his brother Theo, he once explained, "I would like to paint in such a way that everybody, at least if they had eyes," we haven't talked enough about them, have we, "would see it." End of quote. The enthusiastic visitors who always throng his exhibitions today prove just how triumphantly he has fulfilled this ambition. Despite his failure to sell work on something called the art market during his own lifetime, Van Gogh would have loathed the thought of becoming the exclusive preserve of investment-conscious plutocrats and oligarchs. There was a moment to be cherished near the end of a BBC programme once about him, when Van Gogh was shown traipsing through a field with some newly completed canvases under his arm. The tired and shabby artist encounters a suavely dressed modern businessman who makes him a breathtaking mega-million offer for his sunflowers. Van Gogh pauses, scratches his beard, and asks, "Who will see the painting afterwards?" 5 members of the company's board, comes the smug reply. Van Gogh snorts, turns down the offer, and resumes his lonely trudge home. Thank you.
Okay, and once again for the motion, Georgina, please.
Well, I think that all this idea that the art market is purely the domain of investment, what was it that you said, investment-conscious plutocrats, is a travesty of the truth, because it's not just the top end. It's true that that's what gets the publicity, but there's an enormous amount of art that's being made and shown that's not at those levels of prices. It's not being shown in London galleries. It's not being shown in London art fairs like Frieze. And I think that this focus on the very top end is in fact a denial of the rest of the market. I continue to maintain, because I believe it, that the cream rises to the top, that the best art does command highest prices because the best of everything commands highest prices. If we lived in a world without money, then we wouldn't have to worry about this, but the fact of the matter, it does. I think art is a commodity, and finally, artists, it's reasonable that they should be able to live on what they make, and that therefore they also want money. I also would like to point out, or perhaps ask you if you haven't had this experience that I certainly have. You go to a place where art is for sale, for example, an art fair. You walk into a booth and there's one thing that sticks out and you think, oh, that's the one. And you go and ask the price and you can never afford it because it's the best on the booth and it's therefore the most expensive. And if the market did not reflect this value, we'd all be able to sit at home with masterpieces on our walls, but we can't because the masterpieces are more expensive. It's a fact of life. Thank you.
Kenny.
I'll make it quick. There are plenty of cases of artists during the 19th century, like Boucher and Millet, artists whose work sold for hundreds of thousands of pounds and then dropped to 5,000 pounds 50 or 75 years later. The market is very capricious. And nowadays, when art is seen more and more as an investment, there's been a kind of an enormous explosion of what they call free ports all over the world, where art is kept in these kind of little cities unto themselves based on taxing regimes and avoiding taxes. And it's not dangerous because that's stupid, because art is not curing cancer or saving anybody. But when you divorce art from the aesthetics and think of it as only a commodity, it's depressing and it's wrong. I mean, I say oftentimes, I say when I'm wearing my dealing hat, I never get to speak about art because I'm in the art business and nobody wants to hear about it. They want to know who's buying it, who's selling it, who's writing about it, who's showing it, and that's it. It's a very, very reductive universe that we live in, and it's wrong. And it's when you mentioned before, what makes great art? Time. Art is a slow burning process. It's not jumping in an art fair and deciding in 4 seconds, I have to have it, I have to have it, it's the best piece. It's not the way it works. It's a thing about consideration and contemplation and transcendence, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about hanging a bag of money on a wall with a nail. We're talking about appreciating something that's timeless.
Okay, and Francis, finally for the motion, please.
I'm hearing lots of very bold personal judgments being cast on the people who activate the art market and people who, and the way that the people work within the art market tonight. I'd just like to say something, which is that we're all human beings and we all have a curiosity about art, and that's why we're in here involved in it. The people in the art market are interested in the art because there are better investments to make in the world. And I think that those who invest in auction, there's a lot that goes behind that. They're not working in vacuums. They're working in a situation whereby, as I explained earlier, there are artists who make art, there are galleries that nurture artists, there are museums that show artists, and there are auction houses that sell art. And these things all work around themselves and create the situation, the foundations for those who go in to invest in art to make their own judgments, their own human judgments based on their own experience and what they see around them. And to suggest that these billionaires don't even bother to go to museums, don't even read books, don't even look at art, I can tell you as somebody who works with them that they do and they care. And I think that there is a much larger group of people operating in the art market than just those billionaires and just those artists. And I think that therefore to stereotype it and debase it in such a way as to suggest that the art market is separate from art and doesn't really look at art and doesn't really analyse it is a very crude judgment to make and a very personal judgment. I believe in the democracy of the art market. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, now, in that spirit of democracy, I want to see hands. So who is in favour of the motion? The art market is the best judge of good art. Please put your hands up. That is fairly healthy compared to last time. There's at least 30 of you. Yes. And against, please. Hands up. Okay, so there is a victory of sorts for both sides, I feel. It started off we started off with about 4 of you, so I think we're all going home happy. And hasn't voted yet. Oh yes, and nil point for the critics. So once again, thank the panel. Give them a big round of applause, and thanks for coming.